All right, folks. Well, I'm pretty excited about this one because I've got the man himself, guitar player extraordinaire, Brody Uttley of Rivers of Nile, right here on the line with me, Jack Antonio. For Do You Know Jack? How are you doing, good sir? What's going on, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I just mowed the lawn, and now I'm sitting on my porch.
There's a heavy metal news headline for you, eh? Brody of Rivers of Nile mows lawn.
Yeah, exactly. It was glorious.
Yeah, what kind of lawnmower do you use, Brody?
I don't.
Is it a push lawnmower?
Yeah. It's a push lawnmower, but it's like one of the kind that like is self-propelled. So it's cool because I can be lazy and like drive the mower with one arm if I have to because it's pulling itself forward.
This is the first on the show. I've never asked a musician how they mow the lawn. What I should be asking though is the fact, or what we should be talking about is the fact that you were about to go coast to coast tour of Canada just in a few weeks here, starting on the 29th in Halifax. Exciting times ahead for you.
Yeah. We've never a lot of these stops on this one in Canada are places that we've never been to before. We're going to be hitting some markets that are new. I think before we've only done major Canadian markets like Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vancouver, and then we're hitting a bunch of like different ones on this tour. So should be a good time.
You know what always surprises me about Edmonton, and I don't know if you've probably ever realized this just because of, touring bands, you're pretty much in and out of a town before you can blink an eye, but Edmonton has a pretty vibrant metal scene. There's probably, I don't know, at least 10 or 11 bands that I could probably name drop off the top of my head, including a more recent one, Tyrant, who is making news right now.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of any bands that are from Edmonton, but I do know that one of the best shows that we've ever played was in Edmonton. It was I think back in like 2014 when we were on tour with Whitechapel and Devil Driver, and and it was that was like definitely one of the craziest shows that we've ever played. So we're all very aware of the crowds in Edmonton, but that's pretty cool that they have a lot of like metal bands there themselves.
Yeah. It seems like an odd thing, right? You think Alberta, Prairies, Calgary Stampede, maybe they should have a vibrant country music scene, but no, not in Edmonton. Tons of metal bands there. It's like they're just teeming with metal bands, which is really fucking cool.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Canada in general has always been really, really good for us. They're like, even on whether it's a big tour or a small tour, like Canadian shows are usually the ones that stick out to us.
Yeah.
Plus, like, you guys are all pretty nice up there, so that's cool too.
we might be building a polite hedge though right now to separate our two countries. Just advanced warning.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I hate that guy that's doing stuff in the White House right now, so apologies.
Yeah, but you're from Pennsylvania, right? Right around there in the Rust Belt. You guys are, Michigan and what else is up there? Ohio. These are states that, have suffered due to various economic failures down there that pretty much put him in the big chair in the White House, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And I work in Washington D.C. sometimes, so I work right around where the White House and like all of that stuff is at, and it's pretty crazy to see the contrasting environments between like this gigantic gated off political zone that is like the White House and stuff, and then immediately outside of like the White House and all of that whole area, immediately outside of that area is just like poverty, like literally poverty, like just like homeless people like all over the place, just like buildings that are falling over and boarded up, and it's kind of just like really, kind of signifies like the crap that's going on right now in this country and in the rest of the world. So yeah, pretty scary times right now.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Well, now, I mean, I know like just about every artist that I've talked to that's not actually from Canada always talks about the Canadian fans. I mean, is there an issue with metal in the United States? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it a different situation down there?
I would say that it's there's not an issue. It's just like definitely like very very different. Like I feel like in the United States, like people like fans of music will see a tour that's coming through, and they'll kind of like make a judgment call and be like, well, there's only one band on that show that I want to see, so I'm not going to go to that show. Whereas like I feel like a lot of the Canadians that we've met, like they'll go to shows even if there's not a band that they like on the show, they just like metal,
Yeah.
So I feel like and this isn't I'm not trying to generalize, but like I've noticed that like in a lot of cases it seems like Americans are pickier about stuff, and Canadians like just want to like come out and support support music really.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, there's like in the U.S. there's like the big markets, there's like Chicago and New York and L.A. and the big cities and stuff. But I find that like a lot of like the smaller cities in the U.S. like you don't really get like huge amounts of like support, from like smaller cities. But like in Canada, like smaller cities there, like I feel like you get just as much, if not more, than you would get in like a Calgary or a Winnipeg or something like that.
Well, now I'm assuming that your tour here is on the strength of your new record, "Where Owls Know My Name," which is a very like I know Rivers of Nihil is known for being a little bit more progressive, but I mean it seems like you really upped your game on this one, my friend.
Oh yeah, thanks. I mean, we kind of just wanted to come out with all guns blazing on this one. Didn't want to repeat ourselves from the last record. Just kind of wanted to throw everybody a curveball, essentially.
Well, now you know what I was thinking is there's two or three really significant jazz infused death metal albums that came out in the 1990s. Of course, Death's Human record.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Atheist came out with Elements, and also Cynic, which was essentially two of the guys that played on Human that went off and formed their own thing. I mean, is this, in terms of progressive death and more jazz-infused death metal, I mean, are these records in the collective consciousness of bands such as yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Death and Cynic, those two bands in particular were like hugely influential on us, when we, especially like right around the time we started this band, because Cynic's record later, I mean, I've kind of, I kind of did backwards with Cynic. I got into Traced in Air when it came out in 2008, I guess, and then I kind of went back from there. But like that record, Traced in Air, really, impacted me as a songwriter, because it showed me that you could still do like metal, but you could also have like very non-metal parts and jazzy parts.
Yeah.
And then of course Death was like, with Death I kind of started from the top and went backwards. I started with Sound of Perseverance and then worked my way back from there. So yeah, I mean, both of those bands in particular definitely are big influences on us as a band. Atheist not so much, just because we're not as we like aren't as familiar with them. We didn't get into them until a little bit later, but we're very aware of their stuff now. But yeah, I mean, we toured back in 2014 with Death to All, which is the a bunch of the guys that played on those early Death records. So that was a pretty cool experience, getting to like watch Steve DiGiorgio play bass every night and play those old songs. So yeah, but we're all very very much influenced by both Cynic and Death for sure.
Yeah. Now, jazz aside, I was surprised to learn though that you've got maybe more of a classical music and classic rock upbringing. So, I mean, where does
Mhm.
the jazzy chords come from? Like what, in terms of your process, like, are you thinking, oh, this voicing might work, and even, what would have, carried your thought process even to get to that point?
I think a lot of times when I'm writing, like I studied music theory for a little while,
Uh-huh.
and I took some jazz lessons, and I found that like with like the theoretical side of music, like it's one of those things like when you're writing at least that's good to just like kind of have the knowledge like under your hat, but not to like dwell on it super hard, because I find that like a lot of stuff will end up sounding really mechanical and calculated if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of times when I'm writing, like I'll start with like single notes, like I'll come up with a melody and then I'll try to build a chord progression around those single notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with, like just a single tone, and then I'll do like dyads and triads, and I'll start, building chords around it. But yeah, with the jazz stuff, I don't really know. I mean, like I am like real big into like the Blue Note stuff, like Miles Davis and John Coltrane. Trying to think as far as guitar players, Charlie Christian, and John. Alan Holdsworth, obviously.
Yeah.
And and Pat Martino. He's another big jazz guitarist I like. So like I like all that music, and I respect, all those guys, because what they're doing is like just leagues beyond, what I'm capable of doing. So I kind of try to like do little nods to those players whenever I can. So yeah, I mean, that's probably where the jazz stuff comes from. I'm just like a real big Miles Davis fan, like particularly like Bitches Brew and Sketches of Spain, and then John Coltrane, real big on like Giant Steps, of course, and then what was the one after that? I Love Supreme. Those two records are hugely influential on me as a songwriter, not necessarily as a guitar player, because like that stuff is just like insanity, but yeah, no, I definitely have like a deep appreciation for jazz music.
Yeah. Well, you know what I was thinking, just, in the last couple of weeks, I've been checking out some of those fusion era Miles Davis records again, and there's some of those fusion era records, like Dark Magus in particular, that it's verging on almost like, I wouldn't call it heavy metal, but it's pretty heavy by maybe like jazz standards for sure.
No, it really is, like, and I mean, Bitches Brew from Miles Davis, he on that record, like, I mean, I know it's like definitely like one of his more popular albums, but I mean, on that record in particular, like, I don't think a lot of people really think about it, but I mean, like, that record is essentially like, it's like a prog rock record.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's so many parallels that could be drawn between like that record and say like a Yes or a King Crimson, it's pretty crazy, like all the boundaries that guy crossed, all while being, an absolute personally like an absolute mess. I mean, that guy had like so many problems with like, crime and drugs and alcohol and stuff, but he like kept it together and like made these like huge artistic statements that are just going to be like around for the rest of history. It's nuts.
Yeah, well, and it would maybe be a predictable thing for a musician such as myself to say that Miles is, somebody that should be revered right up there with some of the greats like Beethoven and Mozart. But I mean, when you
oh hell yeah,
you think about how many times Miles changed the game of
Yep.
jazz music, right? Like he brought in the cool jazz. He was doing the hard
Mhm.
bop. He was a protege of Charlie Parker, and he took that in a completely different direction. He took John Coltrane, another generational musician, under his wing, and look at what that happened. And then with the fusion stuff, he was working with Mahavishnu, John McLaughlin, and those guys did some
Yep.
insane stuff with fusion when they went on to do Mahavishnu Orchestra. I mean, like anybody that just appreciates music or even appreciates what you do needs to go back and check out some Miles
No,
post
they
haste.
really do. And there's a movie actually. I think it's on Netflix in the U.S. at least. I'm not sure about in Canada, but there's a Miles Davis movie. It's not a documentary or anything. It's like I forget what the genre would be. It's like loosely based on
Mm-hmm.
fact, but I think it's called Miles Ahead. But yeah, that there's a movie about Miles Davis that I like really enjoyed, and it kind of like encapsulated that dude's essence and like how like later in his career, like everybody just wanted to hear the stuff off of Kind of Blue, and like he was like he was completely over it, like he was like
Yeah.
just on a different planet when everybody else was just finally starting to catch up with like the stuff that he had put out like 15 years before then. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, man. Like I said, the album "Where Owls Know My Name" it came out on Metal Blade Records March 16th. I would highly recommend that, and of course, as I said off the top of the interview, full slate of Canadian dates for Rivers of Nile, starting June 29th in Halifax and all the way through to the 12th of July, ending up in Regina, Saskatchewan, because nothing can be finer than an evening in Regina, right, Brody?
Yeah, I never heard that one. That's funny though.
Yeah, well, that wasn't me. I heard Tom Hanks say it once. I think he was commentating a Grey Cup parade that happened to be in Regina. That whole city goes crazy over Canadian football. Let me tell you, it's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
it's an interesting city, and we were like debating on how to pronounce the name of it for a couple of years, but we've finally learned how to properly say it. But yeah, it's yeah, we have some friends in town there, so it's always a fun time rolling through there.
Yeah, well, they're like just like Edmonton. There's some great grassroots metal bands in Saskatchewan and Regina in particular as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, man. Well, listen, it's been an enjoyable conversation, and hopefully at some point I'll be down south and I can catch one of your shows. I know I'm going to be in Saskatchewan and Alberta in July, so hopefully I can catch you down there somewhere, and maybe just a quick handshake and a hello. That I think that would be pertinent.
Yeah, man, just feel free to contact our press contact at the label. They're
Uh-huh.
usually pretty cool about forwarding us people that and we can, put you on the guest list and get you in and all that. So
Wicked.
just yeah, just feel free to hit them up, and they usually forward that to us, and we can take care of it.
Right on, man. Well, it was nice geeking out with you about the music and about Miles Davis, and of course, you put out a phenomenal album. I've been enjoying every second of it. The saxophone playing, and you got a little bit of trumpet in there too, which is the instrument that I play, which is probably why I know more about Miles Davis than
Cool.
most. Yeah,
That's
if you're
awesome,
ever
man.
looking for a
Cool.
trumpet player on one of your records, and you got enough coin to fly somebody down from the Arctic, look me up.
I will, man. Sounds good.
All right, you have a good day, sir.
Yep. You too. Take care.
Bye bye.